Hi everyone, a very good afternoon to everyone who's joined in from India. Good morning, good evening to people from other parts of the world. Thanks so much for joining another LeadSquared webinar. I often forget to do this, but I won't today. So I am Shivani Roy and I run the webinar program at LeadSquared. I basically work for the marketing team here and we've been doing this for a while now. To those of you who've joined the session for the first time or joined a LeadSquared webinar for the first time, a very warm welcome. We do these sessions once or twice every month, and we also have industry specific sessions, so stay tuned for that. Whether you're from education or finance or IT or healthcare even, whatever the case may be, we do industry specific sessions as well. Today we are specifically talking about vendor onboarding, so how to streamline your vendor onboarding process. Some of the things that we'll discuss are the types of onboarding, whether it's an agent, partner, supplier, merchant, and so on. Of course, if you have any specific type, we'll be happy to take that up and answer questions on that. We'll be discussing what is it, of course, why you must do it and how it's done properly. Some of the other things that we will talk about are, of course, the key metrics to optimize the performance of your vendors. And last but not the least, we will discuss the customer use cases from the marketplace. So yes, we have a bunch of, not a bunch of use cases, but a couple of use cases at least. We also have customers from this domain, so we have real use cases to discuss. Now, to take us through the session are Ashish Gupta and Shivam Mishra. Ashish is no stranger to webinars or to LeadSquared. He's been around for a while, worked with several teams, so there's lots to learn from him. He's a senior manager of business solutions. And of course, Shivam, who's joined us, I think a couple of months ago, but Shivam, do correct me on that. And he's really eager to share his expertise on the subject. He's a product consultant. So Shivam will do the first half, and that'll be followed by Ashish. So Shivam, if you could please share a few lines about yourself and take the session forward.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I'm Shivam. I'm working as a product consultant in LeadSquared for almost a year now. So my role here actually involves customizing the LeadSquared product and mapping customer business use cases to the LeadSquared system.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon, audience. Thank you for joining the webinar. This is Ashish. I'm working with LeadSquared since 2012 with a variety of profile, start from sales, marketing, success. There are a lot many, and now currently I'm working as a consultant to solve business scenarios and various business pain point which can be mapped to LeadSquared. So we'll see today how vendor can be onboarded. So it's not about just vendor. It can be agent, it can be merchant, it can be supplier, as Shibani has explained. So we'll talk about all the different aspect of vendor onboarding. So we'll first talk about what exactly vendor onboarding is. So this is the agenda which you can see on the screen. Start from vendor onboarding. 7 pointers where we have a testimonial at the end. So moving to the next slide where so basically what exactly vendor is and what exactly vendor onboarding means. So we'll talk about what vendor is. Vendor is basically a supplier, it can be distributor, or it can be a partner to you, it can be merchant who exactly partner with you to serve the same set of customer, and that will derive the value on behalf of you. So in a layman language, if you talk about that can be a person who is delivering newspaper at your doorstep. That can be agent, right? So that can be like a person. It can be a partner who delivers the food. Let's say in a food chain, there'll be a food, or it can be cloth also, right? So there'll be different varieties of vendor. Now, what exactly vendor onboarding process is? So process is to onboard these partners and fulfill your requirement on a different points, and it enables the organization to serve better and also fulfill the different set of values which you want to deliver to end customer, which as a holistic organization you're not able to deliver. you cannot build that inside your LeadSquared so that you can partner it and then deliver it. So that's a vendor onboarding process and how it differs. So we'll talk about that. So it differs in the way if you talk about marketplace and manufacturers. So marketplace, let's say example, we'll take example of Amazon. So Amazon have sellers where sellers will list their product, and seller can be selling a product also. Seller can be a seller which like selling the catalog. Seller can be servicing that product which is delivered to your doorstep. So that can be a different vendors which Amazon will onboard, and on other side there'll be buyer who will purchase this product. So that for Amazon, vendor can be a cataloging team, cataloging organization who provides the catalog, who service the product, who delivers the product. It can be agent, it can be a company, right? So and the other scenario, we it can be supplier also, it can be distributor also, and dealers who deals with different products, right? So we'll take another example. Let's say in consumer services, how it differs. So in consumer services, let's say if you talk about the food services like Food Panda, then what they will do is they'll onboard the restaurant on one end and agents who deliver that product on the second end, right? So that's the onboarding for them. And if you go for a ride aggregator like Ola, Uber, so they have onboarding process where they onboard drivers so that driver can help your end customer to commute from one place to different place, right? So that's the onboarding cycle for them. And if you talk about insurance, they'll onboard the agent so that they can sell those policies, right? So that's the onboarding process for insurance company. And then for if you talk about real estate, so in real estate you'll have a builders and broker. So the lobby of broker is wide. Now builder cannot sell themselves, they cannot build such a vast variety of sales team. So what they can do is they onboard different brokers to sell their inventory. So that's the vendor for them, right? And if you talk about supply chain and logistic company, so there is a set of company who wants to load their consignment and commute the load their consignment and transport it from one place to different place. So that is one angle where company as a vendor for as a customer for supply chain management company. And then there is another end where truckers who provide trucks to load to transfer that load from one place to different place, right? So that's again angle which you can see for supply chain. Moving to the next slide, where we will explain about what exactly onboarding lifecycle is, what all the different component is. So before that, going further, I just want Shibani to run a poll. So we like to understand what type of vendor you onboard currently. Hey Shibani.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Ashish. And just also a sec, I believe people are already requesting for you to show the agenda again. So if you could go through that just after the poll. In the meantime, I'll just run the poll very quickly. Which type of vendor do you onboard? Guys, so you'll be able to see this on your screen. All you have to do is type the option that's most relevant to you. Which type of vendor do you onboard? Is it a merchant, supplier, doctor, partner? If it's others, let us know what the other type of vendor is. It'll help us give you a more focused answer later, or talk about specific vendors more than others, because we have people representing those type of vendors here. So just let us know which type of vendor do you onboard. Is it merchant, supplier, doctor, partner, or others? I don't see any others options so far. So again, if you do have others in your list, let us know what they are. Okay, so we are getting some. So Santosh says mobile dealers. He's basically talking about smart device dealers. So that's one type. If there are any others from who are present in the audience today, okay, so Meena says others, SaaS based clients. So that's another type of vendor. Anyone else, if you have any other types that you want us to talk about, please do mention that here. I can tell you, Ashish, Shivam, the vast majority are saying partner, so that's 36%. 23% say suppliers, about 8% say merchant, 3% say doctor, and the other 30% are saying others. So all those of you are saying others, please do tell us what these others are, otherwise we won't know. So I'm going to give it like 15 seconds more for you to answer. About 70% of the people have already voted, but if there's anyone else still left, there can be more than one. Okay, so yes, Shweta, we should have. So unfortunately, this poll app only allows us to give 5 options, which is why we couldn't share more. But yeah, feel free to share any of your responses here. Okay, I'm going to close the poll, but Ashish, that's basically it. 21% say suppliers, 9% merchant, 2% doctor, 40% partner, and 28% say others.
Right. Thank you for attending that poll. So our agenda today is like start from the vendor onboarding, different cases of onboarding, and then what exactly life cycle of onboarding is, and what challenges you face for onboarding, and how LeadSquared play a vital role there, and how it can streamline your process, right? And we'll talk about add-ons where you'll help out to extend your services more, and then what benefit LeadSquared is giving it, and how streamlining process will be benefited for you. And the last will be the testimonial from the customer and the use cases we'll be speaking about. Yeah, so we have covered about vendor onboarding process, like what exactly vendor onboarding is. The next will be covering about what is the onboarding cycle, and what all different component are, and how onboarding is with system and without system, right? So typical onboarding life cycle starts from the identifying the vendor, which is very typical task where you need to gauge right set of vendor which provide the same value and which comply with the regulation and also serve the same set of customers, right? So that is very important, which is identifying vendor. Then the team, onboarding team, will follow with those specific vendors to get onboarded with you, get partnered with you. That next set of actions for the sales team is basically who will captures the detail of vendor, and that is the demographic details of the vendor, where exactly they are located, what exactly product they serve, and all that. Now the next set is you will collect the document of KYC. So it in case of B2B, like partner, so you'll collect different set of document, different set of elements, like it can mean corporation certificate and GSTN number. And in case of agent, you'll collect the KYC document, Aadhaar card, PAN card, or national ID with whatever you have. So that is a KYC process. Then what exactly verification team will do once the document is being collected, that verification team will verify that is a right vendor we are onboarding, the document is correct or not. So if it is correct, it will move to the next step. Otherwise, it will reject here itself. And further, you can down the line, you can re-nurture them if they are capable enough to partner with you. Or as per the next step, they'll have an agreement and documentation or contract with this particular vendor. Terms and conditions will be there, and they'll have a training so that they'll deliver the same set of services, and you'll check quality of that vendor and at a parameter, and then last that will be onboarded for you. Now we'll see with and without system in the next slide, how the system will help, and if not having any system, what drawbacks you are having it. So without system, it's very clumsy, and the process is very scattered. Now you are collecting those information on Excel or either in a document on the field, and it will be very difficult to assign any task to the user so that they can engage with this, assign those corporate location based or availability based, and whatever communication they have done, that will be oral, that cannot be recorded in the system, right? So the verbal communication, the commitments will be verbal, and of course the documentation will be there, but the process, during the process, you don't know the process, how the vendor is onboarded. So throughout the process, how the vendor feels about your process or experience about that process, right? You cannot store that document, you cannot find that, so that it will be very tedious task for you. Security concerns will come up, and you'll end up the entire cycle of onboarding will be time consuming, and the uh, productivity team will analyze that onboarding team has decreased their performance, right? And you'll end up making out a wrong set of vendors, right? So that is without system, that is a scenario. Now with system, what you'll have is with system, you'll have data which is feed in directly, which is process driven. You can mandate the users to feed in the correct set of data, correct point. You can tag those locations of those vendor so that they can re-engage with them. You can create a task or maybe a different set of engagement activity with those vendors, appointments and all that, and the document will be collected seamlessly. You can organize it under that vendor. It will be security will be there for that. You have productivity which will increase due to that, because the time for verification and collection of the document is will be not a lengthy process, and all type of communication at a different stages and engagement you can do through the system. That will be very helpful for you, and will help the increasing your efficiency of the team, as well as the vendor will be more efficient, and the process will be transparent for the vendors, right? So that will be right kind of vendor you'll be on board, vendor, and it will make your life easy, sales guy life easy, right? So moving to the next slide, we'll talk about the component of life cycle, right? So as we saw the process, the component is like identifying the vendor, then collection of document, verifying it, checking it, training, nurturing that, engaging that. And on the right side, you'll see the stages of the vendor management, which you see here is analyze the vendor goals. You can set it, negotiate with the contracts, onboard those vendors, and maintain communication. And you can also have reward programs, which is communication and nurturing, you can see, right? We'll talk about in the next slide um, what teams are involved. Teams the nomenclature of team can be different. Here, like can be onboarding team, field sales team, or maybe verification team, performance management team, quality team, which basically checks the performance of sales team as well as the vendor, and the training team who trains the vendor as well as the sales team. So these are the typical teams which will involved, and you can create different structure around it, right? We'll move to the next slide. We'll talk about challenges. Mostly the challenges is sync with the same set of process which we just spoke about. Yeah, so these are the challenges. So identifying vendor, validation, communication, long time to onboard, keeping them engaged on different stages, and setting up the goal, keeping revised programs and all that. So that is a long challenges which we face for like onboarding an agent or vendor for you. Now, what I want from you is just to uh, we'll run a poll. So just give us idea what challenges currently you are facing it, so that we can in the next slide post that we'll have a entire discussion on how LeadSquared can help you out. Hey Shibani.
Yes, Ashish. So which poll do you want me to run?
A set of challenges which
Oh,
generally the
right,
company
right, yeah.
faces. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Okay. So, guys, again, the polls in front of you. What are the current challenges that you are facing while onboarding? Is it identifying the vendor? Is it verification or the onboarding time, or the engagement, or anything else that you see as a challenge that we may not have mentioned here? Please do mention those. But yes, we're just trying to understand our audience better today. So, just let us know what are the current challenges that you may be facing. Most of the people so far are saying that the onboarding time is where the most amount of time goes. So 36% are saying onboarding time, about 26% are saying engagement, 15% are saying identifying vendor, and 18% are saying verification. 7% are saying others. So let me just see if there are any others. Okay, yeah, Santosh, so you've said identifying vendor, that is there. Is there, and it's open to everyone who's joined the session. Are there any other challenges that you see or you're facing while onboarding the vendor? So for the vast majority, okay. So Chrysanta says lack of knowledge of the system. I'm working on. Okay, I think she's responding to something completely different. Santosh says verification. So those points are already there. If there are any other points that that we haven't mentioned, please do mention it here on the chat. But I can tell you, Ashish, Shivam, most people have trouble with the onboarding time. Thereafter, it's engagement. That's followed by identifying the vendor and verification. And yeah, and the last one is others, which about has 5%, but we're still unsure of what some of that is. So yeah, back to you, Ashish.
Great. Thank you, audience. Right. So we'll see in the next slide. Right. So next slide is basically how LeadSquared helps you to streamlining your process, and all the points which we spoke about, how LeadSquared will help you to uh, um, reduce your onboarding cycle and verify that, and how it plays a vital role. So my colleague Shivan will enlighten you on that process. So Shivam, can you guide us on
Yeah,
that?
thank you, Ashish. So it was wonderful. You shared your insights on vendor onboarding. In this section, I'll basically talk about how easily an organization can automate the process using customized onboarding softwares like LeadSquared. So, considering the process, onboarding a vendor is a most important and difficult task. So, I'll explain it to you with the help of an example. There are basically two types of lead aggregation, like, for example, vendor aggregation. Now, this aggregation can happen via field sales agent, like the onboarding team field sales guy, or maybe through some on a website, like vendor can land up to your website and submit a query or an inquiry form. Taking the first process into consideration, the field onboarding agent will go to come across a new vendor, and he'll fetch required details, maybe the name of the vendor, mobile number, all the required documents, and that will be directly transferred to the verification team. In the second process, what will happen is after the submission of the inquiry form, lead can go to directly to the calling team. If you have a calling team, then they will be responsible for building the first touch with the vendor, and thereafter the lead will the vendor as a lead will get transferred to the field agent again for the first meeting. Here, the one of the most important problem is allocation of lead, how to distribute leads to your field sales guys. LeadSquared plays a very vital role here in allocation of lead. This can be done on the basis of pin codes, agent performance, product type, agent availability, and many more ways, depending on the criteria or the requirement of the organization. Like it, for example, like agent performance. So agent basically can perform better in a particular domain. For example, a restaurant onboarding agent can perform good in particular area, for example, language, taking consideration a language. So once the lead lands up to his system, will automatically allocate tasks to him to go and complete his task. So a task can be a document collection task, or maybe verification task, mobile verification task, yeah, KYC verification task. All these tasks can be automatically allocated using the automations and workflow feature of LeadSquared. So auto check-in checkout feature of LeadSquared. This is one of the most difficult problem faced by the organization who is going to onboard a vendor. So they are actually not able to track how the onboarding team is doing, have the uh, agent, a field agent, attending all the meetings properly or not. LeadSquared solves this hassle by auto check-in checkout feature. So what the agent needs to do is basically with the start of his day, he can check into the LeadSquared mobile application, and thereafter all the locations he travel, all the vendors he seeks will automatically get captured to LeadSquared, and will be transferred to the corresponding managers on the basis of in the form of reports. In this way, the managers and the organization can keep a track of how many vendors they are onboarding and how the onboarding agent is basically performing. Auto day planner, this is also one of the most amazing features of LeadSquared. What this feature actually does is this automatically plans the day of the onboarding agent, the field onboarding agent. This will define the route on the basis of priority, so he'll not have to figure out the way which lead he needs to cater first, and the last need he needs to cater. The system will automatically plan a route for him, and he just need to follow the route configured by the system. And similarly, likewise, the reports will automatically get transferred to the managers. Smart View. So LeadSquared has this amazing feature called Smart View. This basically is a daily workbench for the users, where leads will automatically get deposited in one of these personalized buckets. As you can see on the left hand side is a B2B vendor onboarding Smart View use case, and on the right hand side is the B2C onboarding use case. So these are the buckets customized especially for that specific agent. So what he basically just needs to do is, like, he have to go to one of these buckets. He doesn't have to shuffle around the all the leads he has to go check the leads he needs to visit today. For example, today's meeting is one bucket here. Today's follow-up, he just need to go there, check how many leads are deposited in that bucket, and complete the meetings very easily. So Smart View has a number of advantages. For example, this automatically refreshes your tab with all the leads coming into your account. You can also receive daily reports on the basis of your view, which is customized on the basis of your requirement. Help them identify nearby meetings. So this is one of the key features of LeadSquared mobile application. What this basically does is when a field sales agent come across a vendor, so what he can do is he can geotag that location of the vendor, and whenever he is around, he can just go to this feature leads near me, and he can check whether any lead near him is available, and he can directly go and collect documents, build a touch, or just collect all the necessary data if any missing. Dynamic forms, one of the key problem which is faced by the field onboarding agent is when he is onboarding two different type of vendors. So what actually happens is, I'll explain this with an example. So what basically happens is, a agent can be good in a particular product, or maybe in a particular language or something like that. So the lead will uh, automatically get transferred to him. He just have to go to a vendor A maybe. So that vendor is dealing with a specific product. So the agent will basically have to open that specific form which is corresponding to that specific vendor. So he'll open a form. For example, as you can see on the left hand side of the screen is electronics, and on the right hand screen you can see office product. So he'll basically choose any one of the forms, and he can fill up all the details respective to the vendors without any problem. Like, all the fields and all the data will be customized on the basis of vendor he's visiting. So these forms basically make the field agent efficient, and he'll get to know what data he needs to capture from which kind of vendor. I'll show you some screenshot which is configured on the LeadSquared platform. So this is a vendor onboarding form. This is basically a 6-step form. This form can be a multi-step or a step-by-step form. As you can see, this form has 6 tabs, that is company details, eligibility agreement, bank details, and certificates, and etc. So these fields are again customizable, and on the basis of requirement, these fields can be configured. So this form will directly, the agent has to just go to the vendor and pop up this form, fill all the details. He doesn't, even if he forgets any field to capture, the field is already there on the form, so he doesn't need to worry. Similarly, the agent onboarding form differs from the vendor onboarding form. As you can see, this is a step-by-step form. All the fields here are different because he is now onboarding an agent. Now, agent or associate can be an insurance agent for an insurance company, or this is a storehouse onboarding form. So you can see the fields here are different from agent onboarding form, and all the fields are again customizable. These are just an example of few screens from different kind of forms you can configure using LeadSquared tenant. So you have also this feature, like the agent has this feature on the mobile itself. He doesn't need to take any hard copy of any document and then get confused on which document belongs to which vendor. He just need to capture all the documents on the go, and the documents will directly get transferred to the verification team post submission of this form. OTP verification feature. So this is a very important feature. Like the importance of this feature is to authenticate whether the vendor is genuine. So the next form that was I earlier showed you, which was the onboarding form. So that form will only get submitted once the number is verified. So that basically solves the problem of whether the number is genuine or not. So once the field agent will have the number of the vendor will get an OTP on his mobile. That OTP needs to be fed by the field agent on his mobile application, that is LeadSquared application. Once the approval is done, then only he can submit the onboarding form. This is how you can authenticate a vendor. Using LeadSquared application, the field agent can basically connect all the teams on the fly. This can be configured easily once the lead comes into the system. You don't need to do anything manually. All the forms and processes are configured in the backend. Post verification, the lead will automatically go to the credit or maybe the operations team as per the organization, or further to the vendor management team. So all this can be configured using LeadSquared in the backend, and the tasks and activities are also customizable based on the type of action which will be performed by the user. As I've already earlier mentioned, like I showed you the smart view screen on the mobile. This is a smart view screen of a verification team. Now this has basically 4 buckets. These buckets are again customizable. It can be more than 4 also, and uh, with a glance only, like the user will get to know how many verifications are pending, how many verifications are on hold, how many are verified and rejected. So once he'll go to complete a verification task, he'll get a pop-up form like this, and he just need to check the documents from the back end and verify the documents, whether the documents are if the documents are verified, he'll choose verified, not verified, or rejected as per the response. And he can also add notes. This form is again customizable as per your requirement. So this was the first part of the entire process of the onboarding. The second part is basically how to keep your vendors engaged. So that is the second part. So Ashish, can you help us understand like how we can manage vendors using LeadSquared platform?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shivam. I think Shivam explained about documentation, collection of document, and the verification process. So once this all is done, so you can see the time to do this activity, it will be very minimized because it's a instant notification which will go to verification team and they can verify it. And now coming to engagement, so the process which we have shared earlier, so there is engagement where the agent will go and meet those customers. So let's say meeting happened, that is a kind of status, or maybe onboarding happened, onboarding is being progress. Those kind of engagement points, status can be notified on a real-time manner. It can be by SMS, email, or WhatsApp. So that kind of engagement is there. That is one level of engagement. Second level of engagement is where if the vendor is not performing well, or vendor is having performance issues, what type of performance issues they have. So based on that, you can create a plan for your sales team so that they can go and meet these vendors and engage them. And it can be a campaign, it can be field visit, or it can be any other parameter. So those workflow, you can do it in the system. So that's the engagement parameter. And the next slide, we'll see what type of opportunity. Let's say if you have account, any type of account, the signals can be triggered in the system. So signal can be, let's say if performance is going down. Now, if you've created a flow where if like the example is a vendor is not performing well, he is not attending the calls, or maybe he's not attending the customers properly. So, and you have a signal that it's the performance is going down on a basis of orders or any other factor. So what we can do is we can directly engage with this vendor or what exactly happened, or we can delist them, or maybe we can nurture them on any other factor. We can do campaigns. So those kind of real time task driven notification will be there for your team. The next slide will explain that about the upsell and cross sell parameters. That is basically which helps you to sell the opportunity. So let's take a real-time example. Let's say if you went to the vendor and that vendor is selling a product. Now that vendor require assistance in basically packaging. Now your company is having a services of packaging, right? So now this is an opportunity where you list this vendor as a seller, but you can also sell your services along with. So that can be opportunity for your another team that will help you to identify different kind of opportunity on different way. This is one example. It can be a different opportunities which you can trigger, and that identification will be done by sales guy because he knows that vendor well. And other team which can help your organization to grow an other vertical or the services vertical that will build your revenue cycle very much. um, Moving to the next slide, we'll see the flow. So there's a simple flow which I just want to explain here is how to nurture the client based on the task driven by the sales guy. So here what we have a trigger point is when the performance of partner goes up, high, low, medium, risk. If it is a risk, then you can have a field campaign where you can have a field visit, you have a nurturing task. So those are different type of notification we are sending up. We are creating a task for the users so that they can act on, and based on that different type of process can be trigger out, and you can send communication also to the sales guy that what exactly action you need to take along with the notification. So that is a beauty of the product which we have, and that will help you to engage uh, each partner at the different points, and also at the right point where you need that attention of that particular vendor to be your attention to the vendor, right? So that's a advantage. We'll see on the next slide about add-ons basically. So that add-ons is basically what this is basically cycle which we have explained. um, that add-ons will help you to integrate with different products. The products can be a third-party app. It can be any telephony system. It can be any other system. So what we have is for add-ons, we have a developer platform, which we homegrown developer platform we call as LeadSquared apps. Short name is Labs. And we can see on the left side there's a screen which shows that the code has been written. So that is a code editor. You have this platform works on REST APIs. So basically, a simple example is, let's say onboarding is done. Now you want to send this data to your system. So that request will go to the third party app, and third party app will send back a data if required. Other example you can take is, let's say you have a document and you want to you have a GSTN number, let's say for company. Now, to verify that, e-verify it, you'll send this information to third-party app through our labs or connectors. that will help you to return back a value that GSTI number is valid, or also the other parameters of GSTI and the company information, all that. So that kind of flexibility is there with labs. You can have a HTML editor is available, it's encrypted. You have a PDF generator, so if you want to generate any contract or something, so it's a flexible enough to create that in the system. Now that is one angle for add-on. This, to streamline the process, you have another set of example is like you have optical character reader, which is OCR. There are different vendors available who provides, or basically companies who provide that OCR services. So we can basically integrate with that, and that will, what it helps you is once you capture the image, system will automatically capture the name, phone number, email ID, or any other details which is there on your document, right? So it makes life more easy for the sales guy. They just need to capture the KYC document clearly, and it also recognize that if the image is being clearly identified or not, and also it captures each details for each KYC document which you collect from the field. That's the OCR addition, which will help you enrich your data. And the next point basically which I want to make is the whole process which you have done for the onboarding. Now that process is you have a clue of what performance is there as per the system capability, but you're not getting feedback from the vendor who is onboarded. So throughout the journey, you are not able to relate from the market that is your journey is perfect, or you have done a good job on the onboarding, your sales team has done good job or not. So for that, what we can do is we can integrate with telephony partner, where you can run a robocall for uh, taking out the feedback, or maybe you can also have a SMS integration also that can also be doable, where you can send a long code message to reply back how's the vendor onboarding, your onboarding process was, how easy it is, what difficulty you face, right? So robocall can trigger a specified message that will, they can just pick any of the menus which you have given, like one, it's not perfectly fine, two is good, the excellent onboarding process, it's very easy to interact with your team. So that can be a number driven, and that response will come back to LeadSquared. So that's how the uh, whole process of onboarding will be seamless, as well as you'll get the advantage of listening out the what exactly vendor is saying in the market about your process, right? And you can improve it after that. Okay, so coming to the next slide, we have a different benefit which we are driven from the LeadSquared. We'll talk about that. Yeah, so benefit is basically you'll improve the profitability. The profitability will increase based on, let's say, the vendor is the right vendor you have onboarded. So, and your process of KYC and everything is properly, then you don't need to hassle around. You don't need to you don't need to have a different dependency on vendors. You have uh, reduced the redundancy, you have reduced the cost, you the cost of you have engagement will be lesser, right? So the expectation aligning the process of purchasing or any other cycle will be very less. So you'll boost your brand also in the other sense. How? So basically, if your vendor is delivering that value, and you have created a right set of vendor, that will boost your brand in the way they'll promote your brand. They'll have a word of mouth if the customer is having a good experience with them, right? So that is a value which will drive to the consumer and consumer, right? And ultimately we reduce the risk of mitigating this risk which is driven to the end consumer. And you'll have onboarding cycle will be very efficient, and which will be timely and reduce the time. And we have a testimonial around. The next slide will give you a few quote of customers which currently using systems. Only we have placed two. There are a lot many vendors. there are a lot many companies who have their onboarding process here with LeadSquared. So Mishu has reduced the onboarding cycle and also efficiency from 5 to 10% to 70%, which is very like drastic change, right? And in terms of Zoom Car, they have reduced their overall cycle of onboarding time from 20 days to 5 to 10 hours, which is very crucial, right, for a company to go and market. And your main goal is to serve the customer and make ROI on that, right? Not to just onboard the vendors and juggling around that, struggling around that, right? So that's a different testimonial we have. Yeah. So Shivani, I want you to run a poll where um, like because audience can reply back like if they are using some system and not.
Sure, Ashish. So here goes the next question. And yeah, like Ashish said, if you are using another system, feel free to tell us. Just let us know what you're using if you really want to. Oh, it's fine. But we just want to know if you're using a system. So do you use any system to streamline your onboarding process? Yes, no, or you don't know, or maybe because I understand you may not have this information with you all the time. So I'm quite happy to say that about 70% are saying no. So that's great news for us. Try LeadSquared, see if it works for you, and or just maybe get on a demo or just look at some documents maybe if you want before any of that to determine if you want to go ahead with LeadSquared. But otherwise, just let us know, are you using any system? So 23% say yes, and 60 now it's moving. So 70% say no, and about 20% say yes, and about 12% are saying they don't know. Um, that's what I have. Yes, Santosh, I can see your answer. You don't use one, so just let us know if you're interested in LeadSquared. We will give you a call straight after this. I'd also like to mention that we have like about the last 10 minutes before 4. So if you have questions, please post them now. We already have a few questions which we will take up very soon. But if there's anything else, this is your time. Please do ask, and we will respond to you immediately. I am going to close the poll now. So Ashish, Shivam. The poll says 65% say no, 19% say yes, and about 15% are not sure.
Right. Great, Shivani. So, all right. So I think we can take out the queries customer is having it, means audience is having it.
Sure. Let's start with Meena's question. So she says, what is the KYC process that a typical company has to follow?
Okay. So it to answer that query, KYC process depends upon the organization, and also it depends upon the vendor type of a vendor which you are onboarding. So example, let's say you're onboarding a supplier, then the KYC process of that supplier will be based on the equipment or maybe product they deliver or maybe they provide. So the product quality check and all that will be covered in that ad, and that will also come in picture. And also the supplier incorporation certificate, and there are registration certificate, and if you go for outside India, there will be different KYC documentation will be there, right? So it totally depend upon what type of supplier or maybe what type of vendor you are onboarding. And in terms of, let's say, for if it is like individual agent, then the KYC will change. And this all norms is driven by governments, and it differs to country. So yeah, so hope that that answers your query.
Okay, Meena, just let us know if that answered your question. And if you have any follow-up questions, please do ask. I'm moving to Zaid's question. He says, does your product include the ability to do eKYC?
Yeah. So right, so we have a capability to do eKYC, that is through the connectors which we have. Connectors in the sense we integrate with a different solution, and then as a holistic product we offer you. So we have done with one of the bank, a lending firm. So that combine as a service, we can provide it to you, right? So after collecting the document, eKYC can be done through the third-party connector which we have.
Okay, staying with KYC, I have another question that says, how can the turnaround time for field agents while collecting docs or doing KYC verification be reduced?
Yeah. So reduction of time can be, there are different parameters to it. One is you collect the information on a different instance, a different level. Like say first meeting, you'll collect the basic information, then you'll have collected. That is the progressive detail you're capturing. That also reduces it. Other ways, basically collecting this documents, or maybe we spoke about the OCR process, right? So there you just need to upload this document. System will capture the all the details which is there on the documents, right?
No, right.
And it doesn't take much time for that upload. You just need to take a snap of any of the document, right?
Okay, I am moving on to the next question. So, Shelin, I'm not sure if I've pronounced your name right, so just correct me if I haven't. He says, do you have something for vendor identification in B2B? And the question carries on, do you help in identifying reliable vendors? I'm from the logistics industry and it is essential to find truckers, CHAs, etc. Onboarding is good, but identification is the first major problem.
Right. So see, that is basically what we can do help you is we have a marketing engine that may help you, which is online generation of leads, online generation of leads from different aggregators or different channels, which will be digital channel. That might help you, but ideally, this which as per my experience, ideally all the different companies does this activity on the field, because this all information is not available uh, outside anywhere. So you agent go out and then collect this information. Majorly that is how it happens. But yeah, the other channel is online, digital channels anyways is there, where you can, the LeadSquared can help you out to capture this information on the fly.
Okay, and I think Santosh had a similar question, but he said, how would you help us in identifying vendors and verification? So I think that's been answered. If any of you have anything to add to that, please do. In the meantime, I am moving to Shweta's question. So she says, are you connected with some vendor aggregator sites or forums or agents that can help us to source the right partners?
Hello. uh,
Yeah, should I read the question again, Ashish?
yeah,
Shweta's
Shibani,
question?
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so she said, are you connected with some vendor aggregator sites or forums or agents that can help us to source the right partners?
uh, right, we do have few vendors or maybe aggregator that might help you, but we need to connect, and we need to see what exactly the partner, what type of partners you're looking at, right? So that may help you. We have few indications in place that might help you, but we need to understand exact vendor, what exactly target segment you have, and
She's
what type of
saying,
partner you're looking at.
she's saying logistics partners, transporters, stuff like that.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think we can take this offline. We can discuss with Shweta directly, right? That will help.
Yeah, sure. Shweta, you can expect us to get back to you on this. In the meantime, I'm moving to Stefan's question. I'm not, again, I don't know if I've pronounced that right. Um, he says, what form of communication does LeadSquared use to communicate to vendors in-app notification, WhatsApp, calls, SMSs? What
Yeah,
form of communication?
yeah, Shrivan. So communication will be, we have a different way of communication. It can be SMS, email, calls. We do have a WhatsApp channel to communicate that. And calls is basically we can do integrate with a different vendor of IVR, telephony vendor. Through that we can do it. And in-app notification, which is there are two aspect to it. One is you get notification for the sales guy. Second is the vendor get notification, which is your own app. So we do provide that integration with your native app so that we can trigger those kind of notification from our automation. And we do provide a webhook facility, and also an in-app notification can go as a different messages to your messaging system, messaging or maybe notification system which you have.
All right. Again, if anyone has follow-up questions, please do ask. I'm moving to Varsha's question. She says, it's about the field agent's meeting schedule. Can the agent enter minutes of meetings, and the same, can that be generated as a report to the company?
Right. Great, Varsha. So that is a basic feature which we have. So I think so we can discuss that. So basically, once the meeting has been scheduled, you'll have a task for the agent. Once the task is being, they wants to complete the task, will ask a form, that is a meeting notes form or meeting minutes form. And then apart from that, once he feed it that information, reports can be generated in the system. So that minutes we call as a user productivity report in the system, and that there are different varieties of report for that.
Okay, so my next question was about the performance of the onboarded agents. How can they be measured? So I think that's also been covered. This is followed by, how can we streamline the interaction between the agents and the other internal teams?
Okay, and yeah, so I want to take here the two approaches here. One is interaction with different teams can happen automatically via system and in a form of notification or messaging going to the system, which we currently follow as our organization also. We have a different teams. So if one team completed their task, so immediately a certain type of notification, which let's say example is the inside team who sets the meeting for the field sales team. Once the meeting has been set, what is the context of the meeting, what is the agenda of the meeting, they'll insert that in the meeting notes or a particular format, not a notes, there'll be a particular format which we call as activity and activity field set. Once that is being entered, system will send automated mails to the next member who will be attending that particular meeting, right? So that's a communication which has happened. And once the meeting has happened again, the caller need to know that is happened. So it will go back again to the caller as in a form of email or task notification, any type of notification you can create it. That is one way of communication. Second is you have a chat system, internal chat system where they can communicate, but it will be very clumsy because if agents directly communicate, you can record that in the system. We have that facility, but that will be very lengthy procedure and it will not be helpful. So instead of that, I believe the first process will be more easy for you so that they can communicate. And because one agent wants to know what other agent is doing or maybe anyone to communicate anything, so they can communicate through another way also is what we have is sharing of lead, where they can just share a lead and comment it on the uh, notification which we gave it on the mobile app or maybe web also. There they can write what exactly they want this lead to be looked at and why they want that to be looked at. So there are actions which we can be driven, and that can be analyzed also, that how many type of communication being done, and that action will be driven in the system and you can have a report to it.
All right. So I don't see any more questions coming in, and it is 4 o'clock. So I will end the session. Those of you who asked about the recording and the deck, yes, it'll be shared with you. Maybe not today because we still would like to edit the recording if any edits are required. But yeah, you'll get it soon. And yeah, I don't see any more questions, so we can end the session. If Shivam or Ashish, if you have any final thoughts or tips to give our audience today, please do share that. And I can also tell you, Santosh is saying very useful and informative session. So yeah, that's great. But Ashish, Sagar, Ashish, Shivam, if you guys have any final thoughts.
Right. Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, audience, for joining the session. It was wonderful to have you on the session. So, our only suggestion is the process we have, as per our experience, we have shared with you. So that particular process can be driven any type of process which we can map in the lead squad. So you can come across your use cases, what exactly you want to map, and we can provide that particular solution to you with LeadSquared or combining a different solution to LeadSquared. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Shivam, for your time. Thanks so much. Even the audience say thank you to you both. Uh, we will end the session now, and the recording and deck will be shared with you soon. I look forward to having some of you back in the next session. So we have an education webinar coming up, and we have a healthcare one also. If you want more information on that, just email me. Write to me at shivani.roy@leadsquare.com or respond to the webinar email. Thanks so much for joining the session. I'm going to end it now. Take care. Bye bye.